Don't fucking interrupt me.
Right? Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Starving Artists, the #1 podcast in the world. I'm your host, Bijan Kodavandi, and welcome to episode 4. Yes! Starving Artists is about creatives risking it all to chase big dreams, my personal favorite type of human. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, my friend Jenna Rose McKenzie.
Hi.
Hi. Jenna is originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and moved to LA 5.5 years ago. Not only is she a published author, not only does she teach yoga, but she also drives a white Tesla. What?
That's a very big feat of mine.
You know what? I thought I'd include that.
Manifestation queen.
Yes, exactly, and we will touch on that later. What can't she do? Well, I'm not done, because she's also a mindset transformation coach specializing in NLP and hypnotherapy, who also climbs mountains in her spare time. Yep, you heard that right, folks. Jenna summited San Gorgonio Peak in July, which is the highest peak in Southern California, and get this, she only cried 3 times. Welcome to Starving Artists, guys.
Wait, can you tell them though how you know that I climbed that mountain?
Because I climbed
3 times.
Because I climbed it with her. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to say I'm excited you're here. Let's get into our first activity. So we are going to do an activity called Word of the Year. And Word of the Year is something...
Name for it.
Yes, it's called Word of the Year. And I encourage all of you to start practicing this in your life. This is a practice of, like, you know, people have resolutions, but I like to choose a word of the year every year that kind of defines my intention that year, something that's going to be a navigating force, and it being one word or one concept kind of requires you to think about it, and it's just something that, you know, you can choose to kind of let be the backdrop of your year. Whatever the word of your year, word of the year is for you, you have to paint it, and then we can kind of just talk about next year and, you know, our goals and whatnot. By the way, aren't these just amazing? Look at these cute little easels. I got them at Joann's. Oh, I could look at these all day. Oh gosh. Okay, so let's talk about San Gorgonio.
Okay.
Me and Jenna went hiking, and this hike, how long was it, Jenna? How many miles?
19 miles there and back.
19 miles there and back. Elevation was it 13,000?
No, 11,500 feet.
Wow, you remember these.
Yeah, I climbed a fucking mountain. Of course I remember the stats of it.
Yeah, you're right.
Wait, I don't know. Hold on. I gotta think.
She's like, what is it?
How do I draw this?
Again, you can always...
Whatever, it's gonna be abstract.
Yes.
Like my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, this is really pretty. So it was really long. Me and her drive up together. We camp. We glamped. We weren't on the floor. We have cots because we're...
Is that glamping though? I feel like that's
really.
still camping.
It's camping for sure. So
we did have a heater.
We had a heater, and I think, what did you learn about me on that trip? And then I'll tell you what I learned about you.
Oh, I've never thought about this.
Really?
Well, for one, I learned that you really put your money where your mouth is. You do.
That's true. You did ask me, and I was like, I'm down, bitch.
I also learned that, like, you think that it's appropriate to eat, like, a bunch of bags of candy before going on a 19-mile hike.
I ate so much candy. I think you were kind of worried for me.
I was. And then first I was worried for you, and then I was mad that you were able to climb a mountain after eating like 6 bags of candy the night before. And I'm over here like prepping, like nutritionally. I'm like, I'm drinking green juices and like protein shakes and like all the stuff and like prepping my body. And I still cried and almost didn't make it. And you were just like, I'm just gonna eat 6 bags of candy and like get a headache at the top and that's it. Like,
oh my God. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That was really tough. I think one thing I learned about you is actually you're very tough. Like, yes, she cried, but she summited.
I'm gonna cry right now.
Yeah, you're actually very tough, and you summited, and you know what? You cried on the way, but you made it. And then you were like in such high spirits up there, like so grateful to be there. And that's something I really love about you is you're very present in what you do. I already knew that you're very positive and very, like, she really searches for meaning in everything she does, and I love that. It's not just a physical feat, but it's like, what does this mean in the greater scope of my life, and what does this, you know, feat mean for me? And I love that about you. So, yeah, and like,
I was just gonna say, like, that is actually something that's really big in my life is like how nature, I get so many life metaphors from nature. And like I got a lot of metaphors on that mountain too.
It's true, because there are a lot of, you know, through lines in terms of pushing yourself up a mountain and also pushing yourself in life. And, you know, even though it was exhausting, you didn't let that defeat you. And on top of the mountain, you were in way better spirits than I was. And actually, I was like a pissy little queen up there.
Because I didn't eat 6 bags of candy the night before.
I had a raging headache. I don't know what was going on.
It was the fucking sugar, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that might be true.
Wow, it only took you 6 months to admit that to me.
Yeah, so I was not doing great up there. In fact, right when we summited, I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to go. I'm not a hiking girly, I must say. I'm not a hiking girly.
He wants to go again, though.
I do want to go again.
He's becoming a hiking girly.
I know, I am. So it was a great experience, and I love doing that. We have to do that again.
On that mountain, I was going through a period where I was like kind of questioning. I know we're like probably at some point going to talk about sobriety, but I was kind of like back and forth about like not smoking weed again or whatnot. And like I had just sat with Cambo, and like then like a bunch of shit happened, right? Like my my wallet got stolen, and like directly after. And I was getting this download of like, oh, like, you know, the universe is like, well, if you're gonna macro dose on my magic, then like you need to like give something back to me. And I'm like, what? Like, you know, so it wasn't making sense. And then it's like going up that mountain, I realized I had been in this habit of taking shortcuts to my healing, right?
Okay.
So like, and the way that I learned this was because there's like a shit ton of switchbacks going up this mountain. And I don't know if you remember, but you were going along the path as followed, right?
Yes.
Me and my bright ass, I was like, well, this looks shorter. I'm just gonna go up the middle.
Yeah.
And in the process of going up the middle, I burnt out my legs, which is the reason why I cried on the top of that mountain and was like literally begging God to get me off of that mountain or whatever the fuck is out there. But I realized, I was like, oh, like, so walking up that mountain straight up, I burnt my legs out quicker. I got tired quicker. And so I was trying to take a shortcut, right?
Yes.
And that like taking shortcuts in life, like taking shortcuts to healing, like you're still gonna pay the price, right? It's either, you know, go slow and steady like Bijan up that mountain, or like, you know, pretend to be a mountaineer and like me and just like crawl up the fucking middle of it, you know?
And there are consequences to whatever strategy you choose to summit the mountain. There are advantages to her strategy and there are advantages to mine, but you're right, there's definitely that kind of that lesson, which is like sometimes cutting corners will exhaust you in the long run when, you know, going on the path that's a little bit longer, that might, you know, be the beneficial route in the long run. Okay, so everyone, this is my painting.
Wait, I have to guess what your word is.
Okay.
Let's see it.
So I'll describe it. So this is a house. These same colored pieces are the tools to make that house. They are the materials, and then that's me. So what do you think my word of the day is? Or my word of the year is?
Build.
Yes, it is. Good job.
Wow.
Yes.
You're never gonna guess what my word is. I don't even know what I'm drawing.
Yeah, so my word of the year is build, and you'll see that the little logs or what have you.
Yours is very literal. I like that.
Yes.
I think very abstractly. I'm like, what colors represent this to me?
Yes, yes.
Let's put them in lines. Like,
Right.
what?
No, I mean, that's beautiful. That just speaks to, how different people are in different minds. But for me, I really want to use 2024 to build. I've started my podcast. I've started my social media journey. I love making content. And now it's about not what I'm going to do, but how much of it I build this year and or next year rather. And I hope for both of us that we are intentional about hitting milestones, recording progress, setting goals, and making actionable steps towards those goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I already knew I was resilient as fuck. I've already known that for a long time. But climbing that mountain was really just like utter proof to me that, I remember what it was now. That once, when you push it, you told me this, I think, and this is what actually made me realize it, was that like once you push yourself past a certain threshold, right? Like you have now created this new bar for yourself. And it started with that mountain.
Yes.
Where it was like, getting up that mountain, like there was that one point up there, right? The point where we keep talking about where I cried and Bijan told me that there's no crying in baseball. I was literally sitting down and I'm like,
yeah.
God, please get me off this mountain. But I didn't give a fuck. I knew I was like, I'm gonna make it to that summit. I don't care if I have to get airlifted off of that summit. I'm gonna make it to that fucking summit, right?
10 grand later. Well, let's unpack that moment. Let me just weave you a little tale, okay?
Weave you a little tale. Let's tell a story.
Let's tell story time. Woo! Okay, so we're going up, right? Again, it's about, how long did the whole hike take us?
13 hours.
13 hours.
I'm a numbers girl. I remember numbers.
Yeah, you really do. And I don't for some reason. So it took us 13 hours. So we're to go up, we're probably at hour 5, right? Maybe 5 or 6.
So
I think it was.
So it took us 8 hours to go up.
You're right.
Because of me.
Yeah. It took 8 hours. So we're about. Things started to unravel around hour maybe 6.5.
Yeah.
And Jenna's a mountaineer by hour 5, right? So she's like, I'm gonna go off the trail and I'm gonna go up this route. And I'm like, I'm sticking on the trail and I'm down here and she's up here. Well, she realizes very quickly that her trail ends. So what she had to do was use her crampons, these little micro spikes, to pretty much like get herself back down to the trail, right? So that was really scary.
Well, and this was the first place where there was snow.
There was snow, right? Because we're so high that it goes from, rock to literal snow.
So high.
So she's having to rappel backwards, no rope, and down like this snowy mountain. And that's when the tears start to flow. And I wasn't sure yet. And the blood, because I think she like scraped her knees also.
I did.
Just for a bit of context, I am, I come from like a very athletic family where, the crying wasn't necessarily encouraged. I'm also from a Latin household. I don't know if any of you know, but, showing your emotion isn't exactly our culture. So I'm here trying to summit this mountain. I have a raging headache, and Jenna is like coming down this mountain, starting to cry. I dare you to do a backflip. And I wasn't sure if I should I didn't know if she was being serious or not. Should I throw this snowball at you? So I took a little temperature check and I'm like, all right, Jenna, let's go. And then she really starts crying. So we're at mile 8. How are you feeling? And this is when you're tested as partners, when you're doing something big,
yeah,
and your real sides come out. And I was just very unsympathetic.
Getting stuck in the know.
Yeah, you guys nag at us now. I'm very much like, okay, like I get it's hard, but like let's go.
You're right, that is when things started to unravel.
It is.
It is.
Because, you know, I'm thinking about how many more hours of sunlight we have. It's cold. The air is getting thinner, so it's harder on the body. And legit, it was scary. It was scary because you still have probably an hour and a half left. You're exhausted. It's getting darker. It's getting colder. Anyway, she sits down and starts like really crying. And usually that's when people like really start to be sensitive and compassionate, but I just hardened and I just stood up and I said, Jenna, there's no crying in baseball. And then I turned around and I continued walking up and I was like,
Didn't I say something to you though?
Yes.
I was like, just go.
You did essentially say like, I need this moment to myself. So like, go ahead and I'll figure it out. And that's what I did, folks. I left her, and because I knew in that moment, you didn't need to be coddled. You needed to be, well, I don't know what you needed, but
I knew what I needed. And
you
that's
knew
why
what you needed.
I needed you to get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah.
I needed you to get out of my face so that I could figure out what I needed and give that to myself.
True. And I knew I couldn't give that to her.
Which was a sandwich, just so you know.
Yeah, she just needed a Sammy.
I needed a sandwich. I'm not even kidding. And that sandwich changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I ate a sandwich, I stopped crying, and I put the crampons back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put one foot in front of the other. And that's another big metaphor I love about climbing mountains, is like, if you look up at the top of the mountain and you go, oh my God, I have to go all the way up there, it's overwhelming, right? But if you just look down and you put one foot in front of the other, you eventually get to your destination. And then you look back and you go, oh wow, like, look how far I've come. And that's like in life, right? You look at these big, big goals and you're like, oh my God, like I need to, you know, build this multi-million-dollar business and all of this stuff. And that's overwhelming. But when you look at what you need to do today, I'm going to film this podcast. I'm going to, you know, open, I don't know, whatever, an account, whatever. The little things you need to do, one foot in front of the other. And then you look back and you're like, oh wow, look how far I've come. And I my life is proof of that now, because now when I get really hard on myself, I'll look back and I'll be like, damn girl, like where were you at like 2 years ago, 5 years ago? Like,
yeah.
One foot in front of the other, one small thing at a time. And I actually really needed that reminder today, because I've been like kind of hard on myself this week.
I love that. So that was our Gorgonio trip. Yay!
San Gorgonio, yay!
Okay, we're gonna move that. We're gonna move on now.
Let's move on.
Okay. I want to clear the paint. So do you want to finish your what you're gonna say about this?
Well, I don't really have much to say.
I like it. Okay, let me see. I'm seeing. Okay, if I were gonna guess, to me, I don't think this is a word, but it's giving abundance. Because there's money, there's like, you know, the rainbow, which is like, you know, just optimistic. And it looks like this is kind of like giving abundance. And
so I'll be honest, that's not what I started with in my mind, but that's the word I ended with.
Okay.
Because when I started painting it, I realized like that was the vibe I was getting from it. So really my unconscious mind was painting abundance.
Okay.
But my word that I thought of the other day was responsibility.
Ooh, oh gosh. Okay, I love it. You know, I love it.
Just because I've been like kind of irresponsible with money.
So, austere. Maybe your word should be austere.
Yeah.
I taught Jenna that word recently.
Yeah,
she has issues. She has a difficulty being austere. But
abundance. I like abundance.
I like responsibility, Jenna. I like that word better. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I do. I need to learn more financial responsibility.
I like that.
Know? And but I'll tell you why though. It's not because I used to be someone who is very frugal.
Ooh,
and like very careful with money, but from a lack mindset, right? And then I started practicing the laws of attraction, which I'm sure we're going to get into. I started being a very diligent student of the laws of attraction. I turned my whole life around and, you know, got sober. And then I became on the other side of the spectrum where I was so lax and I was like, money comes and money goes and I'll be fine, right? And so then I got to, that's true. And I lived like that very easily for a long time. But then, you know, then I took on the Tesla payment and now the NMA payment. And now it's like, okay, like that was okay to be frivolous with, but now it's like if I really want to continue to move forward, I need to be a little bit more responsible with my money. Like I can't just like get sad and press like check out on my Amazon cart, you know?
Definitely not. Okay, so we've finished our painting and now we're just gonna get into some other things. I mean, we have so much in common and some...
Do we though?
I think we do. We also are completely opposites. But I did want to talk to you about a couple of things. First, I kind of want to talk about sobriety. Yes.
Let's go there.
Yeah, let's go there.
Just air out all the fucking dirt.
Yeah, and like, I'm just curious about like, so you've been sober for how long?
Well, it's kind of a tough one because everything is different.
Okay, because, yeah.
I've been sober from heroin for 5 years.
Okay.
I've been sober from alcohol for 4 years. And I had 2.5 years of, I always feel the need to say this to people when they ask me, but it's like, I always have to give it out. I had complete abstinence for 2.5 years. And then I started smoking weed again, doing psychedelics. And now I've been sober again, completely abstinent for 4 months, 5 months.
That's amazing. And I mean, I've always respected that about you. And I love that piece of your story. I love that background of yours. And because I think it informs so much of who you are today. Like you're so present.
Why I'm trash. Just kidding.
Why you have texture as a human. And
that's one way to say trash. I love that. Your texture as a human.
No, it's true. And so I think people in your shoes have a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that other people don't. So I'm curious, what has sobriety taught you about what is important in life, and like what does your sobriety mean to you?
Well, those are two different questions. Okay, what has sobriety taught me? So I'd say like the one biggest thing that sobriety has taught me, and yeah, the one biggest thing that sobriety has taught me is, so like once you have, let me speak for myself. That's one thing sobriety has taught me, to speak for myself.
Oh, also we can keep it like this distance.
Oh, great.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So
I just learned this when you were gone. I checked the mics. I was like, oh, no, none of this. Like, it should be like this.
I'm like in here. This is how you know I'm new to this.
Sorry. Set alarm for 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that sobriety has taught me, is speak for myself, not say when you, but that's neither here nor there. So what I have learned is that after having time of abstinence from all mind-altering substances, I can't unlearn what I've learned, that I'm a better human with nothing affecting, with like no substances in my body. And I'm not saying that that's for everybody, but generally speaking, like it is my deepest opinion that like we all have this authentic version of ourselves, and you know, life is already tough enough, right, with the way that we're conditioned by society and whatnot, that like it's hard enough to like know ourselves and like find our true selves and be our true selves, and that it's a lot easier when you have clarity of mind, right?
Yeah.
And having clarity of mind means not being affected by substances. You know, this doesn't go into my opinion about like the spiritual and medical uses of psychoactive drugs, because I have very strong opinions about that too, but also like they're just tools, like not a way of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the biggest things sobriety has taught me, is that like humans are better. Like we are more productive, we're better lovers, we're better friends, we're better, you know, human beings, we're more giving, we're more compassionate when we don't have anything affecting us, right?
What does your sobriety mean to you?
Man, I feel like the first thing that just came to me is like kind of going along, so like kind of going off of what I was just talking about. I truly believe that now, like, okay, do I think that I could use something in like for fun or recreationally here and there? Maybe, I don't know. I did try it out and it didn't really work that well, whatever. But what my sobriety means to me is like liberating myself from the suffering that just being a human in American society causes, right? So like liberation from suffering.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, as you know, I've, also not drank for a while.
Woo! 6 months, right?
Yeah, 6 months. Yes. So
That's a big deal.
Thank you. And like, I know you've been always a supporter of that. I was sober curious for a while.
Cheerleader.
Yes, biggest cheerleader. And I love connecting with you over that, because what I see in like your journey is it takes immense discipline and an immense like self-love to continue abstinence in any form. And I love that about your story, because it really is like this superhuman quality sometimes, I think, to remain sober, because there's so many temptations. But just know, like, I'm a big fan of that for you, and it's inspiring, and I'm glad to have friends like you.
Oh, thank you. It's funny hearing you say that it's like it seems like a superhuman thing. And like, I guess I totally get that, because like at one point of my life could not imagine my life without substances. But then it just becomes a way of life. And like now, and maybe this is just me, I don't know, I tend to be kind of like nonchalant about, oh yeah, this is just like, how I do life, like not being so, oh my God, I'm amazing. It's kind of hard for me to see that about myself sometimes, but like, it doesn't feel superhuman to me. It just feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or not supposed to be. This is my life.
So I think a lot of people something they struggle with is they know they have to make a change in their life, but they're unable to do it. So what is like something you would tell someone who wants to make a big change in their life, but they keep maybe failing at it, or they feel down because they haven't made this big change? Like, what is something you would tell someone? Like, what is some,
like any big change, or sobriety wise?
Let's do sobriety. Let's talk about that.
I guess, I guess what I'm about to say, the first thing that comes to me, could go for either. And this is something like a quote that I just learned recently from my trainer, Reg, who is my trainer in NLP and hypnotherapy. But he said something that really stuck with me. And because the first thing I think about when you ask me this question is, well, most people won't get sober until they hit a rock bottom. And what a rock bottom is massive pain. And the quote that Reg said is, most people won't make a change until massive pain or massive inspiration. But you don't have to wait until that point, right? And it just takes like, it takes some like strong why, and like it takes a little bit of will and determination. But unfortunately, most people aren't going to make major changes unless they are in massive pain or are massively inspired, And I'm a great example of that. Like, I went through very intense heartbreak, and I have this habit where every time I go through heartbreak, I invest thousands and thousands of dollars into my self-growth.
Love it.
Yeah, that's how I got my yoga teacher certification last year. I got my heart broken, and I literally cried for 2 months, and I spent $4,000 on that. And then this past summer, major heartbreak, crying my eyes out, and I literally dropped $7,000 on two of the most life-changing things that we just talked about earlier, right? A 7-day silent retreat, and then now becoming an NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist, right? Like, I just invested like literally $7,000, not to mention the 3 weeks of work that I took off, which is another, whatever, $4,000 or $5,000. So like really invested like $10,000 into myself, but because of massive pain, and I am still working to be somebody who it doesn't take massive pain for me to make a change. And I am working every day to be better at that. And I think I'm getting a lot better at that, especially with awesome friends like you that encourage me to come on podcasts and do the things. it's not that everybody's like that, because I look up to you as someone who like gets those things done, right? Like you make to-do lists, like you even got sober kind of without a program. You're just like, I'm gonna do this thing. There was no real big rock bottom for you. So this is not like generalization for everybody, but most people, that's just how it happens. Most people that do get sober, they hit some sort of a rock bottom. I know I did, so
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's kind of the ethos I always take, like with a lot of my friends is, I've become less, I think for me, not drinking has given me a level of compassion for people that aren't where they want to be in life, because, like I try to correct people less. Like I try not to change people as much anymore. I know everyone's going through their personal journey, and I can't impose my discipline on other people just because I'm having this journey. But I'm curious to ask, can you tell a short story of, if you're willing to, of a time you felt during maybe the times when like you weren't sober, like one of those moments that was kind of like an eye-opening, I need to make a change or I'm going to lose everything? Do you have any stories?
Yeah, actually. I'm just gonna go with the first thing that came to my mind. I could think of something maybe more serious. I didn't make a change after this story, but it's kind of so like, this is gonna sound dark, but like to me it's really funny now, but it was also really scary at the time. So well, it's no secret now, I used to shoot heroin for a long time, for like 8 years, and that was just the shooting heroin part. That wasn't like the pills before that. So I was like 26, and I was in my bedroom, which was all lime green, by the way. I was almost 27 years old with a lime green bedroom. And
interesting choice.
I was getting ready. I actually, ironically, whatever, that's a tangent. It's so funny, I'm like even feeling this vulnerability now about sharing this.
Yeah, only share what you're comfortable with.
But I mean, this is true. Like this was, I like to go with the first thing that comes to my mind, right? Because that just feels like the intuitive.
And this is gonna help somebody.
Yeah. So I was alone in my room and I was getting ready to go to the bar. So I had the heels on and the dress on, and my bed was probably about this height. Maybe a little bit shorter. And I was doing a shot of heroin before I was leaving the house, and I was crouched down.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I was crouched down like this.
Okay.
Arm on the bed.
Okay.
I did this shot. And I fell out. And when you fall out, that means I nodded out. Like when you think of drug addicts, right? That's what happened.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here in my heels, crouched down.
Oh, wow.
And when I came to and I woke up, I had lost all the feeling in my legs, in both of my legs.
Oh, shit.
To the point where I tried to get up and I fell.
Oh, snap.
And I couldn't get the feeling back. And like, I looked like I was one of those people, like, like an old person that like can't get back in the chair. Like I'm like reaching, right? I'm like reaching for the bed and trying to pull myself up. And no joke, like it's not even like an exaggeration, for like 20 whole minutes, I couldn't get off of the floor. I had lost all the feeling in my legs, and I was genuinely scared that I had like
paralyzed yourself?
Yeah, or did something like nerve damage or something like that. And I was like, whoa, like that was scary. I think that was one of the first times that I was genuinely scared about. But in that moment, I wasn't like ready to get sober. But that was one of the first things that ever happened that really scared the shit out of me, where I was like, like I was alone in my room, like nobody there, like, so that was like.
And see, those, like, it's funny because, like, while maybe you didn't stop that day, those moments are recorded in our minds, whether we like them or not. It's those moments of fear. It's those moments when your inner self whispers, you need to change this, and we all get that in some form or the other. And it's about, do we listen to those voices or do we just shove them down? And for me, I was like, those had to add up. Like,
Yes.
it was not one time, it had to add up.
Yes.
And sometimes the mistakes you're making are incredibly valuable because that's just adding up. And then one day you honor yourself and you love yourself and you say, no more pain, no more suffering. And would you say that's kind of essentially what happened? Like, these moments just add up and you're like,
1,000%. Like, it's almost like they're whispers, right? And then the whispers get louder and louder until it's like you can't ignore it. And,
Yes.
and that's when it goes from like ignorance is bliss to like then you're just being ignorant to like what you hear, which some people experience as well. But for the majority of us, like, yeah, the whisper gets louder. It gets louder every time you almost paralyze yourself from drinking or you black out and wake up with a stranger, every time the whisper gets a little bit louder and a little bit louder.
Was there anybody ever in your life that kind of like told you like, hey, Jenna, you need to make a change? Like, did anyone ever do that to you?
Yes, for sure. I wouldn't say, I remember one specific thing and one specific person. So we call this a God shot in sobriety, but like when I moved to California, I actually had to stop doing heroin. That was like why I quit heroin, was because I got sick from the drugs here. Which we call a God shot. It was like, I followed my dreams to California. Oh wait, but now I just get sick on the heroin here. So like, oops, okay, well, I guess I can't do heroin anymore, right? Which, by the way, like is a delusional thought to think that you can like recreationally shoot heroin. Like, it's not possible. I'm just gonna put that out there. Try as you might. But like, I was still drinking heavily and smoking a ton of weed. Weed and alcohol were with me through my entire career. And that's why through all of the drugs I had done, weed and alcohol was the last to go, weed specifically. But I'll never forget, I had just moved to California. I was living in San Francisco. And unfortunately, my best friend, Anthony, who was my best friend for 20 years, he had just died of a heroin overdose.
Oh, shit.
And I was like losing my mind, right? This is like neither here nor there, but I also very much felt his spirit like taking over my body a lot of the times, which is another story in and of itself. But to cope with losing my best friend and to cope with this feeling of feeling him with me and not like knowing what to do, it was so overwhelming. I was more so drinking myself into a blackout every single day. And I'll never forget being in my office in San Francisco, which I was a professional face-to-face fundraiser, and all of us are, also face-to-face fundraisers, and we would drink in our office at the end of the day, and we were allowed to. We drank with our bosses, like, you know what I mean? Like, cool. And Leia was my roommate at the time, and Leia's like one of the quietest, nicest people, right? And she is not someone who is ever gonna like call you on your shit. She's very like, monotone and kind and like calculated, right? Like very much like this, right? So for her to say what she said to me was like a really big deal. And I was like, just like chugging whiskey out of the bottle, clearly, because how else are you gonna drink whiskey?
Obviously.
How else are you gonna drink whiskey? And yeah, I just remember being just like so oblivious to the way that I was treating her, that she said something to me that was just, I forget exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of like, and I lived with her at the time as well. So basically it was just her saying to me like, Jenna, like in so many words, like, what the fuck? Like, you are like losing your shit. Like, you really, like, you're being mean, like you're being messy. And like, I know you just lost your best friend, but like, this is not okay. Like, you can't treat people like this.
Yeah.
And she got up and walked out of the office. So now it's like 8 p.m. in San Francisco, and I'm alone in a dark office drinking a bottle of whiskey. And I was like, Like, for her to talk some shit to me was a big deal because she doesn't talk shit to people. And I was like, damn, like, I made Leia yell.
Ooh.
You know?
Yeah, so you fucked up.
Yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah.
And she's Asian too. Ooh. So, like, you know, when, like, Asian people yell at you, it's like...
That means something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like usually they're like, well, I don't want to generalize.
I'm not generalizing. I am generalizing. I am. But, like, you know, when Asian people yell at you, it's very like, blah, 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 right? Like, direct. And, like, it's harsh, right?
Yeah.
Like, Leia's not harsh.
Okay.
So, like, her, like...
It woke you up.
And I was like, oh, shit. And then when I realized I was, like, alone drinking in the office by myself, I was like, all right, this is bad.
I mean, we have this in common, like, well, not like the full scope of our, like, you know, histories, but I think we both believe that life is a little bit better when you're clear-minded and I don't know, hopefully someone watching this takes something from these stories because, you know, I feel like sober people know something about life that non-sober people don't, and there really is a lot of beauty in it. I mean, coming from my past, I was a party boy for 10 years and really good at it.
Clearly, look at you. You're...
I'm weathered, and so clearly.
No, I meant like you're cute.
Thanks.
Clearly, you're like.
I was a freaking party boy. Loved that identity. Loved being that person. But over time, you realize it's not a sustainable way to live. And just be careful if you're ambitious and you're also a heavy drinker. Just be careful because ambition and heavy drinking oftentimes don't really lead. A lot of times you can think you're somebody, but you're really not. And that's why I had to stop drinking, is because I went through years and years of thinking I was this grand, smart, accomplished man, when in reality, I wasn't. You know, I went to college, but I lived in LA. I was living with family. I, you know, didn't have the job I wanted, partying my ass off every day, hungover, broke. And I'm like, Beej, like, what are you celebrating? What are you celebrating?
Yeah, and well, what I'm hearing, like grandiosity and like success, right? What is being successful? Even though you might not be like physically in much of a different place, you're still building your business, you're still building your following, all that stuff, right? Like that hasn't changed. But what is success? Success is happiness, right? Being happy with yourself.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. What I'll say, I love that you brought that up. Success to me now is self-love.
Yes.
You know, this is something that sounds a little corny, but I can look in the mirror now and I can look at myself and sure, I see like maybe I love the person I see in the mirror a lot more today than I did 7 months ago. You know, my awareness of my discipline and my, you know, focus makes me love myself. And like, sure, I'm not going out as much. I don't see my friends as much, but I love myself so much more. And, you know, anyone that's curious about sobriety, like, you know, just
that part.
You know, surround yourself with people that also are on that track, and before you know it, you'll change your life. And I'm particularly passionate about this in the service industry because we're both in the service industry, and I just see a lot of people get wrapped up in that lifestyle. And take it from me and Jenna, two people that love to indulge. Life is really, really beautiful without substances also.
And it's also, I have so many thoughts and feelings about everything you just said, and I'll just say one big thing is like that I've learned in sobriety is like you can still have a shit ton of fun.
So much fun.
When we went to the Abbey that night,
you were an animal
on top of the stage and almost got kicked out of the bar completely sober, right?
Yeah.
Like that is so much fun to me. Like that's a thrill. But like something I really wanted to touch on really quick, and I think if this could be anything that people could hear and know, it's like if you have any bad feelings about yourself or hate yourself or dislike yourself in any way, know that quitting substances, like self-love, that is like the biggest thing that comes with it, because you can wake up every day, right? And at least I didn't drink. At least I didn't use drugs, you know? And that's like one of the biggest things that comes from being sober is just you naturally start to love yourself more.
Yes.
And
it gives you this confidence. You're like, wait, I didn't drink today. Like, I'm a major party boy. Wait, that must mean I am making progress in this, lane in my life.
Yeah, 1000%.
Yeah. Well, I love that.
Sobriety is so beautiful. And then the last thing I wanted to say too, and just touch on really quick, is like, when you asked me earlier, what I've learned in sobriety, and you just touched on it, like that there's so much beauty around, right? So like I've learned true presence, right? Like, and I've learned this through other modalities of spirituality as well, and like workshops, and this didn't just come with sobriety, but like the main tool of learning to experience life as art, right? Like to be fully present with every breath, to smell a cup of coffee, right? And be like, to feel the pleasure of that smell, right? To like look into your friend's eyes and be like,
yes,
I love you. Like with true presence, that is one of the biggest gifts of sobriety too. Everything, beauty is all around us.
And you know why this is true, you guys? This is why. It's because you have to think about it. When you're drinking and going out, like, it's so fun, right? You don't have to give a shit about the color of your friend's eyes. When your bangers are on, when the tequila shots are on, you're about to go to the club, you're gonna see that hot guy or that hot girl. So the little things don't really matter as much. But guess what? When you eliminate all that shit, and you have to start finding beauty in other things. You have to start finding highs in other things.
Yes.
And it goes from shots at the club to, fuck, this coffee smells good. Or, oh my God, this conversation I had with my friend was so uplifting. That becomes your high. Because as human beings, we naturally seek dopamine. We naturally seek those experiences that are going to shoot the serotonin in.
That's why we do drugs and alcohol.
That's why we do them.
Hits.
So guess what? When you take that out, necessarily your mind starts finding them in other things, and it becomes the natural things. It becomes that morning coffee. It becomes the morning when you're completely alert, you wake up early, and you're just proud of yourself. And those become the new high.
Or like, like seeing the sun glimmer off of this palm tree outside.
Yes.
Like just something like that will catch your eye. And like those become, I heard this quote once that I like to live by now. It's like, life isn't about extraordinary moments. It's about finding the extra in the ordinary moments, right?
Yes.
And like that's I really feel like what sobriety has done. And also too, I just want to touch on the fact that like, going back to like liberating ourselves from suffering, like I'm very like anti-government and like whatever, neither here nor there, but like fuck America, our government sucks. Actually, no,
it's the freest country in the world, the least corrupt.
I am so grateful for my freedom.
Lowest amount of poverty.
I am so grateful for my freedom, and I really focus on all the positive. I really do. If I just have to say though, right, that like there are certain things that this country has done and continues to do that's very strategic in the way that they want to keep us asleep, right? So like, for example, right, psychedelics are illegal, right? But alcohol is legal. And alcohol is the #1 cause of deaths, right? So like when you look at it like this, like if you drink, then you are letting the government continue to control you. And that's how I look at it now.
That's true.
Right? Because they want to keep us asleep, just asleep enough so that we're not conscious enough to like
make money, start businesses,
to know the truth, to hear our own truth, right? And that's the biggest thing, because when you're under the influence, you're not connected to your intuition. That part of you is blocked, right? But when you are sober and you're clear, you start to get the downloads from your higher self, the universe, whatever, and you are able to think for yourself, and they don't want us to think for themselves, and so they let us have things like alcohol, right? Like, why is it legal to have any amount of alcohol in your system to drive, right? But if you get caught with mushrooms, you get arrested.
Right. Even weed in some states.
What sense does that make at all? That's a whole nother podcast.
I love that.
Oh no, that was so much gold. That was 20 minutes of gold.
What?
It's okay, I can do it again.
Okay, so we just realized that that last clip, which was supposed to be like 20 more minutes, got...
And it was the best clip of all the clips.
It didn't get recorded, but I've decided we're gonna do a part 2 with Jenna, and she'll tell you all about her NLP training and her healing work and yoga and India.
There's so much more. We need a part 2.
I know, we need a part 2.
This was so much fun.
We're gonna do a part 2.
And like, here's a little serial optimism for you. Even though that is like really disheartening because that was like 20 minutes of straight gold.
That was really nice, yeah.
So nice. And then I said a lot of really nice things about Bijan at the end, which I'm not gonna say again.
It's okay,
like,
they're in here. They're in here.
I'm just kidding. But here's a little serial optimism for you. I like to always believe that like everything happens the way that it's supposed to. And whatever was meant to be caught on film today was caught on film. And the rest of it, it just means even more that we're gonna have a part 2. So.
And people never watch past minute 10 anyway, so it's fine. But I love you.
Fuck our 20 minutes ago!
I love you. Yay.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course, my love. No, we are gonna do a part 2. You're a great co-host, I must say.